Since 2015, Disney has been the undisputed king of the box office, delivering billions in box office revenue and often close to half of entire theatrical box office across all studios. It looked like Disney was going to be the top spot again in 2023 until Universal pulled ahead. Let's talk about that on That Park Place. I'm Jonas J. Campbell, an investigative reporter for That Park Place, where we talk about streaming, theme parks, entertainment, and video games. Today, we're talking about the incredible year that Universal just had and an almost impossibly bad year for the Walt Disney Company. While movies like Oppenheimer and Super Mario Bros., and yes, even Migration, pulled off a profit for the studio, Disney had its first year where none of its theatrical releases hit the billion-dollar mark. What's worse is they spend so much money making their movies that having films make just a paltry $800 million makes it questionable if Disney broke even. Let's get into that. This is quite shocking. When I started in business school, Disney was the big kid on the block by far, and there was no chance that anyone else was going to beat them at the box office. But in 2023, Universal overtakes Disney as the highest grossing studio for the 2023 box office. This by Rebecca Rubin from Variety. Thanks to Mario, I almost read that as Mario J. Robert Oppenheimer, and Megan, Universal Pictures ranked as the highest grossing studio at the 2023 box office. The company slate a range of 24 films that included the Super Mario Bros. Movie, Oppenheimer. Megan collected $4.907 billion in worldwide ticket sales. Of course, we know because of Valiant and Pros reporting that obviously don't take home all of that money. Universal's victory is notable because it marks the first time since 2015 that Disney was not the global box office leader. Disney slid to second place in terms of market share as its 17 new films, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Indiana Jones, and the Waste of Space, The Little Mermaid among them, raked in $4.827 billion globally. In a note to the press, the studio partially attributed the $80 million difference to the fact that Disney released 7 fewer movies than Universal in 2023. Does anyone else want to comment on what the big difference is in the way that Disney makes movies versus the way that Universal makes movies?
Yeah, Universal has a little bit more of a diverse slate. I understand that Disney does have the 20th century branding underneath it, so that offers some outlets for smaller films like Searchlight Productions and so forth. But mostly, you're talking about big name, big budget, blockbusting kind of tentpole films that are released under the Disney brand. Versus Universal, it's a little bit more diverse. So you could have something like a Five Nights at Freddy's, which has only got a $25 million budget, earn mega buku bucks because of that kind of softer budgeting for that film.
Well, they also have less guidance, right, Vash? I mean, they don't make movies by committee. They hand it over to their creators, and
that's true. That's true. But I don't know, culture. We need more guidance, though. That'll help. More guidance, more executives, more cooks in the kitchen.
Right. And those who aren't aware, Bob Iger did say from the New York Times Deal Book Summit, he said on stage that one of the reasons that the Marvels didn't do so well is because there wasn't a lot of executive supervision on that one. And so he said that Nia DaCosta was able to make that movie without executive interference, and that's why it was bad. That second statement is a paraphrasing, but yikes.
What's really funny about this, too, is that at the domestic box office, even up to the weeks the few very last weeks of 2023 before we switch over to 2024, the domestic box office, Disney and Universal were very neck and neck there. And what kind of tipped the scales a little bit? Well, a little animated film called Migration really contributed to that last second box office performance for Universal to kind of overtake Disney there. It's kind of ironic that happens with an animated film and with one that was budgeted at $75 million. Pretty astounding.
Yes. So, Vash, I think you've seen Migration. Kara, Culture, have you seen it?
Haven't had a chance.
Yeah, I'm intending as soon as I can find some time to take all of these, load up the troop transport and try to take all of my family over to see Migration. I do plan on seeing it in theaters if I can, but it. On a budget of $75 million, it overtook Wish, which was supposed to be the culmination of 100 years of Disney animation. I don't mean to be mean to them, but this ain't it,
Right.
And of course, the rumors from Film Threat, which we've been following. Film Threat has had some amazing streams lately, from my standpoint, including some amazing exposure of what's been going on with the WGA. And
Agreed.
of
Oh,
course,
I thought you were going to talk about the J.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was going for.
Yeah,
are you talking about
Amazing
the Yule
live
log
stream.
with
Yes,
Drunk
the
3PO
J
taking
Yule
over?
log.
Yeah.
I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, and for
Love
Christmas we had the Star Wars Yule log over on Film Threat. So yeah, they're doing great content when it comes to that.
Yeah, and I'm going to be paying attention even more. I'm hopeful for every time that they actually. I'm going to talk to Alan Ng about coming on next week because I'd love to get live commentary, of course, but they're also covering the Steamboat Willie situation, which if we have time, we're going to talk about that here on That Park Place. So I wanted to get to this next paragraph here and then get some of your thoughts, Kara. But for the first time in a long time, Disney didn't have one of the top 3 movies. Those spots belong to Warner Brothers, Barbie, and Universal's The Super Mario Brothers movie and Oppenheimer. It's also the first time since 2014, except for the pandemic-stricken 2020 and 2021, that none of Disney's movies crossed the $1 billion mark. Okay, so Kara, in this list of movies here, Guardians of the Galaxy, Indiana Jones, Little Mermaid, Barbie, Super Mario Brothers movie, Oppenheimer, have you seen any of them, and what stands out to you about these films?
I saw Barbie. I have seen Mario. I saw Guardians. I haven't seen Oppenheimer. But I mean, I paid to go see Mario Brothers and I loved it. I paid to go, well, I guess I didn't pay to go see Barbie, but I loved it. And I just, for Guardians, I was very hesitant about going to see it because of the rest of Disney's track record for the year. So I waited to go see Guardians until I was hearing, people were like, oh, it's actually pretty good. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess they can get my money then.
I've heard that as well, and I haven't seen Guardians yet. My wife and I kind of agreed. We even the ones that we wanted to see, we were going to hold off for a little bit. I think our moratorium on even watching Disney stuff for free, unless it's for work, has finally ceased here. But I've heard that Guardians suffered from some other problems that make it like that people might not want to rewatch it. Culture, I seem to remember you had some issues with the film itself because of some of the themes around animals.
Yeah, I'm one of those I'm one of those people that I don't really think that it's appropriate to show things around animals. I think you can show or allude to bad things that happen to animals off screen. You don't need to demonstrate the effects or any of the other stuff that happens around them. So that is a personal thing for me because I'm very soft-hearted when it comes to animals, except for the ones I'm eating, of course. Although I have a soft place in my heart for steak. But anyway, it was a little rough. And if I were to skip past that, I could probably watch it again. But it wasn't a film that I would have, even if that weren't in it, I wasn't a film I'd have gone to see twice. In fact, Disney is now in the habit of making films I will never see again. They make one and done things. So
that's amazing to me, considering I was the kind that I watched every single Marvel movie upon release. I would go back and watch all of the other ones, and maybe again for good measure. And leading up to Endgame, which, I hate to say it, there were some really stellar moments in Endgame, but at the same time, that thing came out a little bit rough. I used to watch them over and over again, and now somehow the MCU has killed my interest, even in the stuff that I used to enjoy. Wow, what an idea there. So the thing that I want to point out here with Barbie and Super Mario Brothers movie, and maybe Oppenheimer might be the exception here. All of these movies are probably under 200, maybe even under $150 million. Some of them more like $75 million. And Guardians of the Galaxy, Little Mermaid, and especially Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, we're doing the research wherever we can here. These are minimum $200 million, not counting the fact that they market them to the high heavens. So these movies have to make minimum $800 million at the box office before they break even. Actually, look at this. They do contemplate this a little bit here. Let's see here. Disney indeed remains a box office powerhouse, but the reality is that most of the studio's 2023 tentpoles failed to live up to expectation. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 at $843 million was the only clear triumph. Okay, so yeah, I disagree with that there. I'm not quite sure that it's a triumph. But they mentioned Ant-Man and the Wasp, The Marvels, Haunted Mansion. I think Haunted Mansion was Disney's lowest release as far as box office gross for things that are branded as Disney this year, not counting the stuff on Disney Plus that has yet to make a profit, of course.
Yeah, what's particularly interesting to note as well about this list is, especially with what Disney released themselves, outside of a few films, almost all of those are franchise films. And even in that top 5 list right there, most of those are franchise films. Oppenheimer stands out as the kind of the sole exception to that, which is very interesting. I think it was budgeted around $100 million, and it really worked out for them. Versus you take a brand, a franchise like Haunted Mansion that has done unbelievable money in the parks, at least through merchandise sales and other things. You take a film like that, you put I think it was I want to say $75 million budget, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. And that just crashes and burns and doesn't even make its production money back. So it's really something to have a box office slate like what Disney produces, these kind of big budget films, do so poorly and then be overtaken by Universal. Oof, that's real bad.
Well, here's the other thing I want to bring up. This paragraph here: Universal endured a few misfires as well, but none were as painful. There's Renfield, which got to 26 million globally. Ouch. Book Club: The Next Chapter. Don't know what that is, but only made 30 million, and that might be why it only made 30 million. Ruby Gillman, Teenage Kraken, hit 45. And I know from some sources in animation that movie. There were some struggles with how woke that needed to be, and apparently the people who wanted it to be woke won out and only made 45 million, and that's not profit of 45 million. And then of course Fast X, which was very expensive, and now the future of that is in jeopardy as certain stars of the film are, I guess, up in the air. We'll say that.
Fast X was definitely a loss right there. There's no question right there. The animated movie that you referred to, the DreamWorks film, I imagine that Universal also kind of suppressed that a little bit, getting rid of the marketing and all that. So
well, they put it out in August, which is not a great month to release a kids film, since most kids are in school then. So it sounds like to me that if I were at Disney, my strategy going forward would be to, I don't know, release more films that don't cost as much money. But how do you fix that when all of your films are supposed to be films with franchise potential and therefore with huge box office budgets?
Yeah, that's the thing. I believe it was D.L. Fendel who said, remember, Oppenheimer was done largely with zero CGI. That's correct, right? And that post-production work contributes to the amounts that these films are budgeted for. I mean, these were just huge post-production costs, which they really get into trouble, and then compounded by the need for research and all kinds of stuff. I mean, I think cutting the budgets on these films is only part of the issue, and to be frank about it, I don't think it would be nearly as effective as. Really, it's the creatives that are really kind of the problem. Even if you do hand off big budget films to these creators and give them all the rope that they possibly want, it still doesn't necessarily result in a good film if those creatives are simply inept at creating works that people want to go see over and over again, like Culture pointed out, right? These films really demand, at these price points, demand 4-quadrant storytelling. And frankly, we're just not seeing that at this point. Also, too, people want, these things really demand rewatchability, which also isn't the thing that they're prioritizing.
Mm-hmm. Well said. And I think that you can take risks when you can keep the budget low, to where you can do a blank check, you can do a Big Green or Cool Runnings, and obviously I'm centering on the 90s here when I say this, or an Operation Dumbo Drop, which that probably couldn't get made today with as much charm, because they would just use a CGI elephant and wouldn't be nearly as fun. But if they reduce the budgets, they can have a lot more fun with this and not make it to where one film can be a bomb. Sorry, am I saying this correctly? They can make it to where each film doesn't have the entire success of the studio for the year writing on it. They used to do 7 or 8 films, all of them huge franchise films, and one of them was going to be a box office flop. One year it was Wrinkle in Time, and nobody cared. Or another year it was The King of Katwa, which that movie didn't need to be big budget. I don't know that it was big
King of
budget.
What?
Queen of Katwa, I think that one. Maybe The one that
I
had.
misheard you. I misheard you.
All right. Thank you so much for watching to the end of the video. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Do you think Universal is going to beat Disney again in 2023? Or will they bring home the winner's spot with just a handful of major releases? This clip was part of our now regular Thursday live stream, which starts at noon Eastern time. Of course, if you're not in that time zone, just hit the notification bell if you'd like YouTube to just tell you when that is. Like this video if you like this video. If you know someone who is as interested as we are in this sort of thing, then maybe you should share the link with them. And of course, please consider subscribing to That Park Place for all the news that should be fun.
Thanks for watching That Park Place News. For more information, consider checking out www.thatparkplace.com. And don't forget to subscribe, share, like, and send this out on your favorite social media account.